Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the presentation of the colors and the national anthem. Honor Guard, present the colors.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Well, if that doesn't wake you up, you stayed out too late last night. Hey, good morning, everybody. I am Patrick Kelleher, Deputy Assistant Secretary of War for Material Readiness from the Office of the Assistant Secretary of War for Sustainment, and I would like to welcome you to the 25th Department of War Maintenance Symposium. First and foremost, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in a round of applause for Senior Airman Marvin Calderon from the Air Force Band of the Golden West for that extraordinary rendition of the national anthem, and the Luke Air Force Honor Guard for presenting the colors. The Again, it is my distinct honor and pleasure to welcome each of you to the 2025 Department of War Maintenance Symposium. As you all know, the symposium is the premier forum for devising logistics strategies, thinking critically about maintenance and sustainment, and openly exchanging ideas across the Department of War. It is amazing to think that only a few short months ago, we were planning to host this event in Louisville. However, due to the shutdown, we had to make the difficult decision to postpone. When we decided to reschedule for January, the Louisville Convention Center was unfortunately no longer available. In its place, Phoenix offered us this marvelous venue for the dates we wanted. In order to pivot the symposium from Louisville to Phoenix required the staff to work miracles on a daily basis. I mean, think about it. The team was able to lift and shift the entire symposium in the space of about a month to a completely different city without missing a beat, and in fact, we added a few things. So I want to specifically thank our partners at SAE International for making that possible. I mean, their tremendous efforts in relocating the symposium to Phoenix cannot be underestimated. This year, the symposium also celebrates its silver anniversary. During the late 90s, senior maintenance leaders searched for a forum to concentrate on the most pressing logistics and maintenance issues impacting the military services and industry partners. After a few early attempts with limited results, the symposium structure was solidified in October 2000. There were only 700 attendees that year in Charleston, South Carolina, but it was quickly recognized as a model for success, and the modern-day maintenance symposium was born. It has weathered its fair share of challenges over the years, including 9/11, sequestration, COVID, and now we can add to the list extended government shutdowns. Nonetheless, the symposium has withstood the test of time, set an attendance record last year in 2024, and flourishes to this day as a one-of-a-kind, cost-effective, top-tier event. In fact, this year it looks like we will be the second highest maintenance symposium in terms of attendance. So that's really good, and that's a credit to all of you for your flexibility in being able to adjust. I know all of you have a heavy workload at home in your organizations. I mean, tremendous demands on your time. However, you made a conscious decision to be here with us this week, and we're really grateful that you chose to join us at this year's symposium. We have developed a robust technical program that you will find well worth your time and very relevant to the current national security environment. Our focus this week will center around the theme of advancing readiness to exploit the logistics deterrent effect, maintaining the capability and capacity to fight and win. In a moment, we will hear from our morning keynote speakers who will put this year's theme in perspective and provide a foundation for our discussions throughout the week. Our speakers are among the most prominent and influential leaders in the department and industry. Readiness, logistics, sustainment are, finally, in my opinion, receiving the attention required to mitigate nearly 25 years of insufficient investment, leaving decades of sustainment debt to overcome at a time when our adversaries are pressing us on every front. We don't need more assessments. We don't need more analysis. We don't need more study. We need decisive action and solutions to mitigate the challenges of contested logistics environment in order to ensure our ability to fight and win. Our two speakers this morning bring exactly that type of bold leadership. From their unique positions, both are leading key initiatives to posture the Department of War to prevail in conflict. This morning we have the privilege of hearing from Honorable Michael Duffy, the Undersecretary of War for Acquisition and Sustainment. He will be followed by Mr. Kevin Zinger of Divergent Technologies. After the keynote address, we will take a short break and transition to our first plenary panel discussion on achieving logistics deterrence, sustaining the edge in strategic competition. After lunch, we have many fantastic breakout sessions for you to choose from, to include the Software Summit Kickoff and the ever-popular Maintenance Innovation Challenge. I encourage you to review the Symposium app and event guides to find sessions that appeal to you, to your particular interests. Our team worked hard to gather a world-class lineup of speakers and panelists for you, so take every opportunity you can to engage in conversation. I truly believe you will gain a renewed appreciation for the challenges our nation faces by the conclusion of the symposium. Most importantly, I do not want you just to appreciate the challenges. I want you to help solve problems. Your mission this week is to actively participate, share your thoughts, and contribute to solution development. Leave the symposium with concrete ideas about how you will think and act differently. So when the time comes, there is no doubt that we did our part to ensure that America's military is ready to fight and win decisively. Now, please allow me to introduce Honorable Michael Duffy. He was sworn in as the Undersecretary of War for Acquisition and Sustainment on 5 June 2025. In this role, he is responsible to the Secretary of War for all matters pertaining to acquisition, contract administration, logistics and material readiness, installations and environment, operational energy, nuclear deterrence, chemical and biological defense, the acquisition workforce, and the defense industrial base. He's a graduate of the University of Wisconsin and has served in senior roles throughout the department over the past 2 decades. Perhaps most importantly, Honorable Duffy is currently leading the planning and execution of the department's acquisition transformation strategy. This monumental undertaking is foundational to rebuilding our military and positioning the department to fight and win in the future. If you have not familiarized yourself with the strategy, I strongly encourage you to do so. Of the 5 pillars in the strategy, improving effective life cycle risk management takes center stage and is especially relevant to our focus this week. Maintenance, repair, and overhaul to improve weapons systems readiness drives combat power, now and into the future. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Honorable Duffy.
Well, good morning, everyone. I want to start by thanking Pat and Lee and the team in the Sustainment Office for pulling this tremendous event together. I also want to thank you all for being here this week to help us advance the state of the practice in maintenance and sustainment. I'm honored to join you here today to discuss how critical your role is to our mission and how the Secretary of War has been leading the charge to drive transformation throughout the department. Sustainment and logistics are fundamental to mission success. Omar Bradley famously said, "Amateurs talk strategy and professionals talk logistics." Von Clausewitz said, "War is served by many activities quite different from it, all of which concern the maintenance of the fighting forces." And my personal favorite, Napoleon Bonaparte said, "An army marches on its stomach." I thought I might get a chuckle from this crowd on that one. The truth is that our formations stay mobile, our ships deploy and remain at sea, our aircraft generate combat power, and our munitions pipelines keep pace with demand because the people in this room planned, repaired, engineered, and executed your tradecraft with discipline and expertise. You are the reason the United States can sustain combat power globally and will prevail in prolonged conflict. For too long, sustainment has been treated as something that followed strategy, addressed after requirements were written and budgets were locked in. That model reflected a different operating environment, one where our access was assured and regeneration timelines were treated as secondary. Our need for a strategic approach to sustainment becomes ever clearer as we increasingly plan for contingencies in which access is contested, supply routes are disrupted, and the attrition of platforms and parts is not just a hypothetical but a daunting reality. In that environment, time becomes our most precious commodity. Secretary Hegseth has been clear. The department can no longer assume uncontested logistics. Adversaries will target the connective tissue that sustains combat power, including routes, nodes, depots, ports, airfields, and the digital systems that coordinate movement and repair. These threats and their impacts are shaping our sustainment posture. As a primary pillar of our strategy, sustainment is a vital piece of our acquisition transformation. This morning, I want to talk to you about our acquisition sustainment and industrial posture, discuss the historic agreement we signed with Lockheed Martin to dramatically expand PAC-3 missile production 2 weeks ago, provide updates on our F-35 progress, highlight the advancements we are making with acquisition transformation, and share an update on Secretary Hegseth's Arsenal of Freedom tour. Our core focus in the Pentagon is straightforward. Acquisition and sustainment can no longer be treated as sequential phases managed by different models. They are part of the same warfighting system. Capability that arrives late does not deter. Capability that arrives quickly but cannot be sustained at scale introduces a different kind of risk, one that shows up in lack of availability, throughput, and operational choice. That is why the Department's acquisition transformation agenda is focused across the spectrum of acquisition, sustainment, industry, workforce, process agility, and technical excellence, and why the realities you will discuss in this room this week must shape how that agenda is implemented. When the Department directed the transformation of the defense acquisition system into the warfighting acquisition system, the intent was explicit. Field urgently needed capability faster with disciplined execution and a focus on outcomes that matter in war. The acquisition transformation strategy reinforces that intent, prioritizing speed, flexibility, industrial base revitalization, and empowered leadership. Those statements are easy to say and repeat, but challenging to operationalize. So let me translate what they mean in practical terms. First, the Department is moving away from an acquisition culture optimized for process compliance and milestone choreography, toward one that treats delivery timelines, scalability, and fielded performance as paramount. A system can meet every internal gate and still arrive too late, too fragile, or too difficult to sustain. Second, we are not talking about speed in the abstract. The objective is speed that produces useful capability and expands capacity. That means planning for production and sustainment realities earlier than the Department has historically required, because scaling and sustaining are rarely solved efficiently after fielding. They are designed into the program from the beginning. Third, this transformation explicitly recognizes the role of software. Software is no longer an accessory to hardware. It is central to how systems operate, how they are maintained, how faults are diagnosed, and how quickly capability can adapt. If you spend any time around readiness reporting, you learn quickly that numbers are not mysterious. They are the visible surface of a few repeatable drivers. Availability is shaped by reliability and maintainability, but it is also shaped by waiting time, waiting for parts, waiting in queues, waiting for technical disposition, waiting for a repair network that has reached its throughput limit, waiting for a supplier that is single-threaded or a supply chain optimized for efficiency rather than endurance. In operational terms, those waiting times often determine whether a force can absorb disruption or whether it stalls. That is why sustainment cannot remain a downstream consideration. When the Department chooses architectures that are difficult to diagnose, it lengthens time to repair. When it accepts designs dependent on brittle supply chains or proprietary choke points, it lengthens time to regenerate. When it treats technical data and interfaces as secondary, it narrows options, slows competition, and concentrates risk. Those choices accumulate quietly in peacetime and become unforgiving in crisis. Speaking of availability, late last year, during Operation Southern Spear, the Defense Logistics Agency provided immediate and comprehensive logistics support to the USS Gerald R. Ford aircraft carrier for its advanced electromagnetic aircraft launch system. Leveraging a global network, the team sourced and expedited all required material from 5 different distribution depots to facilitate the complete multi-phased repair, including a critical motor module replacement. The highly coordinated effort with the Navy and industry partners ensured all material arrived on time, enabling repairs to be completed ahead of schedule. The successful restoration returned the carrier to full operational status and demonstrated DLA's agile global support posture. A great example of providing parts on time during crisis, and thanks to Lieutenant General Simmerly for his leadership. Our organic industrial base is a strategic asset for the department and our armed forces, but it is also a physical system with constraints, aging infrastructure, and workforce pressures. Just down the road, Luke Air Force Base's central role is building the future of air power. They have the world's largest F-35 wing and produced fighter pilots required to deliver air superiority alongside joint and allied partners. Similar to the OIB needing to maintain the availability of aircrafts, resources, and material, our airmen must also maintain the same readiness for combat to secure air dominance. OIB depth and resilience are essential to preventing protraction. I'll say a little more about F-35 in a bit. Throughout the symposium, you will hear how public and private industrial capacity must evolve to meet wartime demand, how advanced manufacturing is reshaping repair timelines, and how the department is working with industry to illuminate supply chain risk. The message is consistent: speed and throughput wins wars. A great example of how we are working with the Defense Industrial Base is the agreement we signed this month with Lockheed Martin to establish a new acquisition model to more than triple production of the PAC-3 Patriot missile. This landmark framework agreement establishes a transformative new acquisition model to expand munitions production and procurement, one that delivers long-term demand capacity and certainty, incentivizing industrial investment to increase production, cut lead times, and drive supply chain management efficiencies, all while reducing or eliminating upfront government facilitization for capacity investments. The agreement with Lockheed Martin is a direct outcome of the department's acquisition transformation strategy. As Secretary Hegseth said in his Arsenal of Freedom speech at Fort McNair in November, we stabilize demand signals. We will award companies bigger, longer contracts for proven systems, so those companies will be confident in investing more to grow the industrial base that supplies our systems. The agreement also aligns the interests of industry, the government, taxpayers, and our warfighters, with Lockheed Martin fully funding investments to scale the required production increases, while benefiting from the certainty of long-term growing demand for the PAC-3 missiles. And if I could just say, we went from 500 to 650 Patriot productions per year in the last 2 years, and we have commitment from Lockheed Martin to go to 2,000 by 2029. It's a tremendous step forward for our ability to produce the systems that our warfighters need. Of particular interest to this group, the framework agreement reiterates that supply chain investments are also required to support production capacity increases. As part of the framework agreement, the department is working with key suppliers of PAC-3 to reinforce the message that demand certainty through these multi-year contracts that we've secured in cooperation with Congress should bring efficiency and incentivize industry investment to maximize the production capacity of components and meet the increased demand. This isn't a one-off acquisition model for the future. We're no longer doing business as usual. There will be more to come in the months ahead, so stay tuned as production is scaled across the industrial base. As I'm sure many of you know, the sustainment enterprise is undergoing a technological shift. Artificial intelligence, machine learning, and advanced analytics add value when they predict failures early enough to stage parts, expose bottlenecks before queues form, illuminate supplier risk before it becomes a readiness event, and give leaders credible options among constraints. The department needs this technology implemented now to strengthen and accelerate decision-making. At the same time, technology alone does not fix a brittle process. If data is inaccessible, governance is unclear, or incentives are misaligned, automation will simply accelerate the wrong outcome. That is why data access, interoperability, and integration into real maintenance workflows matter as much as the tools themselves. People remain our decisive factor in the success of the sustainment enterprise. Shortfalls can accumulate and short-circuit the best-laid plans for mundane reasons. A maintainer without the needed skill set, an inadequate facility, a compounding backlog, an incomplete data set that does not provide a coherent picture. Those daily constraints determine whether a unit is ready when called. To achieve a warfighting posture and the performance of our forces demand in sustainment, we must modernize the enablers to our work: training, pipelines, tooling, infrastructure, and digital systems that high-quality decision-making. As we prioritize speed and execution, responsibility and accountability move closer to the work, making empowerment and investment in our workforce an absolute necessity. Internally, the department uses readiness campaign-style planning and sustainment mission briefs to connect readiness trends to constraints, decisions, and investment priorities. In practical terms, this is how readiness is managed as an execution problem, not just a reporting exercise. Let me offer an example. The F-35 is one of the department's most important programs, and we are laser-focused in the department on restoring operational readiness levels. In support of our F-35 Lifecycle Sustainment Plan, under Lieutenant General Masiello's leadership, we are prioritizing improving readiness outcomes in contested environments by accelerating repair velocity and increasing global maintenance, repair, and overhaul capacity within our organic and defense industrial base. The department is budgeting to support provisioning and cataloging of F-35 spare parts and logistics information technology from industry's business systems into the department's business systems. On the global front, we are expanding the regional sustainment framework in the Indo-Pacific and Europe to repair systems forward closer to the fight. These efforts introduce new and expanded maintenance and repair capabilities designed to operate in contested logistics environments, improve operational availability, and reinforce deterrence. Sustainment pathway projects in U.S. European Command and Central Command are progressing ahead of schedule. There are currently 4 regional sustainment framework pathway projects and 2 partnership and industrial resilience pilot projects underway, each expected to deliver measurable improvements in maintenance timelines and availability. We have established new repair capabilities for key systems in Australia and are bringing additional projects online in Japan. Looking ahead, efforts will focus on extending regional sustainment and co-sustainment activities to additional combatant commands to strengthen collective sustainment capacity with allies and partners. For this community, the value of reform will be measured by whether it reliably produces results that matter in contested logistics, such as earlier design decisions that embed maintainability, modularity, and upgrade in our systems, stronger technical foundations, including data access and open architectures that preserve options, industrial resilience and scalability treated as requirements, not afterthoughts, and a workforce empowered with the tools, authorities, and training to execute at speed. Industry is not a spectator in this transition. The department is changing how it behaves so industry can invest in capacity with greater confidence. But that bargain runs both ways. Endurance, modularity, and scalability must be engineered into each and every one of our systems and capabilities. Here are some other accomplishments we've had in the sustainment area in our acquisition transformation where we were making real progress. In FY25, the Defense Logistics Agency supported the defense industrial base by awarding $22.6 billion to small businesses, including a $5 billion contract to 6 small businesses to support Virginia-class submarines. DLA stood up a new fuel support point in Australia and expanded subsistence contracts in Australia, extending our reach across the region and improving the department's agility and resiliency as it postures for future global operations. Material Readiness launched the Industrial Base Leadership Development Program to address critical sustainment challenges within the organic industrial base. The program cultivates a new generation of leaders equipped to navigate evolving mission requirements within the OIB. By developing expertise in areas like artificial intelligence integration, working capital fund operations, and supply chain resilience, the Leadership Development Program will directly contribute to improved material readiness and warfighting capabilities. Last year, we, in the Office of the Undersecretary for Acquisition and Sustainment, established the Supply Chain Risk Management Integration Center. It is a transformative initiative that introduces a standardized language and framework that has been adopted across the Department of War to unify and streamline supply chain risk management implementation. This centralized and proactive approach leverages advanced tools and governance frameworks to deliver impactful and immediate results, ensuring resilience in contested logistics environments. I also want to highlight the Secretary of War's Arsenal of Freedom Tour, which is having a big impact on our acquisition transformation. Earlier this month, I accompanied Secretary Hegseth as he launched the Arsenal of Freedom Tour, focused on revitalizing America's manufacturing might and re-energizing our nation's workforce. We started the tour in Virginia with visits to Huntington Ingalls Industries, Newport News Shipbuilding. Since then, we visited Divergent, Castilian, and Rocket Lab in California, Lockheed Martin's F-35 production line, and SpaceX's Starbase in Texas. The message we are delivering on the tour is that our national security relies on the speed of our industrial base and the hard work of the American workforce. We are highlighting the urgent need to rebuild the defense industrial base to ensure we continue President Trump and Secretary Hegseth's peace through strength agenda. I've heard it referred to as peace through industrial strength. American manufacturing is the bedrock of American strength. The men and women fueling this work are on the front lines of protecting our national security alongside our warfighters, furthering the nation's efforts every day they show up to work. The tour is championing a new approach to defense acquisition, one that prioritizes and rewards speed, innovation, and a commercial-first mindset. Our focus is straightforward: velocity, scalability, production capacity, modernization, expansion, all critical to delivering the outcomes that are decisive to mission success. To summarize, our top priority is to transform the warfighting acquisition system and accelerate the fielding of urgently needed capability to our warfighters, while maintaining the military superiority of our armed forces. It is reinforced by these core principles: empower accountable decision makers to acquire and deliver, rebuild our defense industrial base to harness American innovation and scale the production of weapon systems to deter or defeat our adversaries, modernize and incentivize our acquisition workforce to take risk and innovate, eliminate the bureaucratic obstacles that have plagued the department and industry for decades, so the talent of our workforce and the ingenuity of industry can innovate and accelerate, and reinforce the planning and designing for life cycle sustainment from the outset of program development. In support of those fundamental values, my team and I commit to you and the entire workforce that we will give our warfighters the full measure of our support, from cutting-edge technology and training to the trust and backing of the department's leadership. We remain steadfast in advancing our readiness, strengthening our partnerships, and ensuring that every American in uniform is equipped to deter, fight, and win. And we will honor the gravity of our responsibility and the courage of those who carry them out. I want to thank Assistant Secretary of War Lee Method and members of the sustainment team for all their leadership in organizing this important symposium and working to maximize the value of this gathering to the department, industry, and everyone here in attendance. A closing thought: never underestimate the role sustainment plays in deterrence. Change is expected. The status quo is not sufficient. You have a seat at the table. Thank you for what you do and for what you will continue to do. The work ahead is demanding and it is worthy of your talent. With that, I'll take a few questions. Any questions? Yes, sir.
Sir, can artificial intelligence enhance acquisition and sustainment?
A good question, thank you. I think there's no question, I've been in the department for 20 years, we are a generation behind in terms of leveraging data, artificial intelligence, digitization, and I think that it's a major portion of our acquisition transformation strategy to think about how do we take the knowledge, tremendous knowledge that we have within our community, within the department, and translate that into high, fast decision quality data and information to accelerate our mission. I think we got a lot of work to do. I think we have to take all that data, harness it, bring the modern tools together that we need to deliver the picture, the analysis, the insights that are required for everybody in the enterprise to be able to fully leverage the data that's out there, and I think artificial intelligence is a key enabler of that. So thank you for your question. I think that's definitely a priority, and I hope it's something that this symposium will take a look at. Other questions? Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, and this might be more of a service question, but has the department looked at shifting parts of the OIB, like naval shipyards, back to working capital funding, given that mission funding has led to declining performance?
That's a good question. I would have to consult my service counterparts to answer that question fully. But I will say that we are looking at ways to maximize the organic industrial base in partnership with industry. I know there's a real opportunity for us, especially as we're looking at new entrants, to create partnerships there that hopefully both benefit industry and government and incentivize some investment in modernizing how our OIB moves forward. But I'd be glad to look into that question about what is the future funding model for OIB. That's a good one. Sure. Other questions? Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Good morning, sir. Thank you for being here. First, thank you for noting the importance of workforce development for the DIB and also the need for predictive maintenance, i.e. CBM Plus. My question to you, sir, is a little insight on how the transformation of the PEOs to the portfolio acquisition executive is proceeding.
Great question. So we're certainly learning as we go. It's a new concept, but widely supported, developed in partnership with Congress at the direction of the White House and with the full support of the department leadership. And the concept is, how do we empower that workforce? How do we take those program leaders who can be singularly responsible for the delivery of a system on time and all of the functional disciplines that are required in order to enable the delivery of that capability at speed, which will require some change within the system. Requirements and resourcing are traditionally separately managed functional disciplines, and we want to bring some of that capability in to the PAE so they could trade requirements if it means delivering on schedule, so they can trade resources if it means they can take advantage of a emerging technology or respond to an evolving threat. But it's certainly going to be a process that will take time to learn how do we effectively implement it. The services have been very responsive to the Secretary's direction. The Army immediately rolled out 6 PAEs. The Navy has a PAE identified. Air Force has 5 PAEs, and the Space Force has identified 2 PAEs. And so our efforts here are to learn as we quickly implement and apply those lessons learned across a 2-year transition to the PAE model. So thank you for your question. Yes, sir.
Sir, I'm Tech Sergeant Payne from 55th Rescue Generation Squadron, Davis-Monthan Air Force Base. I work with the Jolly Green 2 helicopters there. Also a prior resource advisor. So I've dealt with the money side of things. One of the biggest constraints that we've had at our squadron in supply logistics with the helicopters and then also with our vehicles and everything else is some of that bureaucracy that we're trying to get after. Specifically, and I think it's every branch is going to have some layer of this. Like one example I would have is a forklift. We've been authorized a forklift for 4 years on our master vehicle roster, but I can't use 3,400 operation and maintenance type funds to acquire 3080 acquisitions type equipment. And is there anything we're doing to expedite that?
Well, thank you for bringing the urgency of the problem to my attention. This is the design of the intent of the acquisition transformation strategy so that we're not constrained by artificial barriers that, for example, a category of resource puts in the way. And so I would welcome, communication through Lee Method and her team about where those barriers occur, because we really are dependent on the workforce to help us understand where bureaucratic hurdles are getting in the way, and we'll work to do what we can with Air Force leadership and across the services to see if we can break down those barriers. Thank you. Thank you for bringing that to our attention. Yes, ma'am.
Good morning, sir. Emily Farkas from Shift 5. Sir, you emphasize that acquisition sustainment can no longer be treated as sequential activities. We've been saying this for decades. My experience in the Air Force and thus far, 30-plus years of that saying. Yet in the practice, the system still behaves the same way. What specifically will be different in your approach, whether it's policy, incentives, or execution, to ensure that we don't repeat the same types of divided execution and be more modern and more deliberate in trying to diminish that divided line between acquisition and sustainment?
Yeah, it's a great question, and thanks for your persistence. Let's hope we don't have to say that in 2 decades to come. I think, listen, I spent a lot of time in the systems engineering community, and we had a very aggressive approach under the leadership that I worked under of having planning and embedding planning into the milestones. It's a different world right now where there's not, my position doesn't oversee or decide on the milestones of every MDAP like my predecessor was. We've sort of delegated a lot of that to the services. So, but I do think there was very great cooperation with the service leadership in prioritizing sustainment when it comes to the acquisition transformation strategy. And I think what we need to do is come up with what are those policies and incentives and hopefully resources. I'm sure you all saw the tweet a couple weeks ago that, or I guess it's a Truth Social, where the president declared that we would be increasing our budget 50%. I know we need the cooperation of Congress to get there, but hopefully this influx of resources can also help to break down the barriers, because I believe there are constraints. I believe well-intended program leadership trades off sustainability requirements because of constraints of time or resources. And so how do we help create incentives rather than constraints when it comes to, and the other thing that I think I'll mention is, we've really prioritized this program leadership tenure so that we are incentivizing and prioritizing program managers that stay in position for up to 6 years, with the hope that that creates maybe a longer-term view and a sense that the decisions that are made, in early in the program life cycle can be felt by that program manager, and therefore maybe a greater incentive for them to think through how can I be designing in sustainability as I'm thinking through making decisions about the design of the system. So I think that's also a work in progress. How are we creating those policies and incentives that would enable that deliberate planning up front?
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I appreciate you speaking at length about the notion of workforce development. And I think we can all agree that the nation right now is in a pretty significant technical skills gap related to, in essence, overall national security. Have you thought through specific strategic initiatives for technical skill development relative to a wide variety of MOSs?
Well, our workforce and the talent of our workforce is more important than any tool, policy, a budget or anything that we could have. That's truly the glue that helps us succeed. Specific strategies, I think number one, I think we need to prioritize technical excellence. It's a pillar in our acquisition transformation strategy that incentivizes the best minds of our nation to come work within the government workforce. At the same time, I think there's tremendous technical excellence in industry, and I think another important element of our acquisition strategy is how do we leverage the innovation and technical excellence of industry in a way that maybe is not traditional for the department when it comes to generating requirements. Can we have a more open-ended process that absorbs or leverages that technical excellence that industry has really probably stolen from the department over many years, but still is a great asset of our nation. And figuring out how to combine those two together, I think, is key. But I think it is a challenge. I think we also need to make sure that and this is something I think that's an initiative that was started by Deputy Secretary Feinberg, it's called the Business Operatives for National Defense Program. We're bringing in some of the best minds across a full range of disciplines, from retired CIO of Tesla to the retired global supply chain manager for Stellantis and head of global manufacturing for Ford and GM. Folks that have had tremendously successful technical careers are coming into the department because of their patriotism and their love of the country. And I think we need to do two things in that respect. Number one, figure out how to channel that expertise into benefit for the acquisition and sustainment of our weapon systems. But second, how can we harness that to train the up-and-comers in our workforce and capture their minds on capture their interest on maximizing their capability in technical fields that we'll need to retain over time. So thank you for your question.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Are we running out of time?
Yes, sir.
All right, these guys giving me the hook. How about one more question?
Absolutely, sir.
Yes, sir, one more question.
Kurt Hewitt, I'm from Bluegrass Army Depot. I'm in the COSIS programs. My question is, when are we going to see a lifting on the restriction of hiring personnel and the funding for the care of supplies and storage program? I'm transitioning hundreds of millions of dollars worth of equipment to condition code F because my technicians can no longer work on it because we're not funded. We're also seeking expansion into other areas and working with our reserve brethren. I have a request on the table to do work on 45,000 combat vehicles that are not being serviced. When are we going to see, as they say, money is ammunition? When are we going to see some ammunition to help support the President and the Secretary of Defense's initiative?
That's a great question. I'm sorry, can you repeat what organization you're with?
I'm with Bluegrass Army Depot,
Bluegrass.
APS 1B.
Got it, yes. Good questions, and let me take that and see if we can work that. I know we have been under a hiring freeze, but we need the people, we need the money to do the mission, so I'll take that back and see if we can break some log jams there. But thank you all for your questions. Thank you for being here this week and for everything that you're doing to advance our mission and provide tremendous support to the warfighter. Thank you all very much.
Well, thank you all for your questions. That was great, and thank you, Honorable Duffy, for your insights and perspectives from his strategic viewpoint. Really insightful. And again, I encourage you all to review the acquisition transformation strategy if you have not. I would now like to introduce our next keynote speaker representing commercial industry. I truly believe that you will find his presentation intriguing. Mr. Kevin Zinger is founder, lead inventor, and he's right here.
Keep going.
And executive chairman of Divergent Technologies, graduate of Yale Law School, Arizona School of Engineering, and most importantly, an infantryman in the United States Marine Corps Reserve.
Thanks. Semper Fi.
Divergent is an advanced, for those that you don't know, Divergent is an advanced manufacturing company whose team has over 750 patents.
That's correct.
Kevin has invented, built, and commercialized an end-to-end factory system called the Divergent Adaptive Production System to automatically engineer, additively manufacture, and flexibly assemble complex integrated vehicle structures and subsystems. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my distinct pleasure to introduce Kevin Zinger.
Hey, thanks so much, Pat.
Absolutely.
Super appreciate the introduction and the honor of being here because you all keep things running day to day, and our country would not exist without that. So thanks so much. As Pat said, I'm the founder and lead inventor and run a company called Divergent Technologies. I'm here really to do my best to share with you what I think the technology impact of fully digital engineering and manufacturing will have on our country's defense. And it will have every bit as large an impact on maintenance and sustainment, I believe, as it will have on development and production of new weapon systems. Before I get into the heart of the presentation, which is really going to be about what is a fully digital engineering and manufacturing system, what is the system we've built, what impact it has on new systems, existing systems, and on maintenance and sustainment, I'll start with why I think this is important for us. We are at an inflection point. And that inflection point has to do with manufacturing. If you look at what Admiral Sam Paparo said about a year ago about readiness in Indo-PACOM, he said you can't AI your way out of a material deficit. Hardware and its development and its production are the Achilles heel of America. There is no doubt about it. And for the first time, we face an adversary who has the kind of total production capacity and capability that we had before World War II. For me, and what I hope you'll see in this presentation, is when I hear the word rebuild, every fiber of me wants to say, don't rebuild something in the past, rebuild something which gives America a future asymmetric capability, which is all about what America does. America finds new ways to do things and then implements them. Good. So, what is Divergent? So, Divergent is a company which serves the entire defense industry. We are not a prime. Today, we work for we work for every single major prime and many of the neo-primes. We provide the digital engineering and manufacturing infrastructure that allows them to rapidly develop products and take those products immediately to scale. And my thesis for all of you is that with fully digital engineering and manufacturing, the speed and scalability of that is totally different than analog factories of today, even analog factories of today that are trying to use Industry 4.0. So what do we focus on? We act as an infrastructure. We act as an infrastructure the way that Amazon Web Services acts as a cloud for the digital world. We act as a type of cloud for the physical world. We call it factory as a service. So that ranges when you focus on defense. And before I get into those three pillars, what I would say is this is TRL-9 fully commercialized in the auto world. The volumes that we do for safety critical structures, chassis structures, crash rails, suspension systems, powertrain components, suspension components, gearbox cases, those have been fully commercialized and are on consumer cars with a higher level set of initial OEMs, including Aston Martin, Bugatti, Ferrari, McLaren, Mercedes, and Porsche. The system was set up to do truly volume manufacturing. This is not 3D printing prototyping. It's not something that leads to higher volume manufacturing. For the first time, this is fully digital scalable manufacturing that can do automotive scale production. We now, over the last 2 years, have applied that to existing weapon systems. So I'd say it's been announced that we're working on a re-engineering of Tomahawk and then the scale production of that on future weapon systems. We just had our first system go into production with Co-Aspire, which we'll be building over 1,000 of those this year. One single one of our printers can print about 400 of those. That's an extended range attack munition. That's a foreign military sale. That went through Armaments Directorate in Eglin and is the first fully digital 3D printed, metal printed structure to go into true volume production. That is an example of what can be done across all munitions and missile systems. And we're now focused on sustainment solutions. And I'll tell you in a bit how that works into having a fully digital engineering and manufacturing infrastructure. So, what is this system? The system is an end-to-end system that's been developed in-house. This is an American company. It's an American founder-controlled and led company, and it's run by its inventors and engineers. We've built a full end-to-end system we call the Divergent Production System. What that allows us to do, and this is an example, is say Lockheed or Co-Aspire will come to us with a set of requirements, for example, and we'll take those requirements and we'll put them into front-end software we've developed. So the full, I'll just emphasize, in-house, without any foreign supply chain, without any Chinese component supply chain that you see across manufacturing, we've built in-house the full software hardware stack, and our factory actually builds its own printers, builds its own assemblers. So that front end takes a set of requirements. It then generates a fully optimized structure that is valid. And by valid, I mean the only way you have a valid structure, if at the right cost point you can manufacture it, and at the right cost point you can assemble it. So, what is actually happening is a total system optimization using machine learning and high-performance computing to do full system simulation. Adding and subtracting material, generating splits, generating build preparation instructions. Everything all across the entire system is optimized. And that's taking place in hours rather than months or longer. And that is for something like the warhead, the fuselage, the wings, the empennage, and now for 2 defense engine companies, we're going to start to do that for gas turbine jet engines and solid rocket motors. So that gets generated. Once that is generated, we've then created what is really the first metal printer that has the stability and uptime. And to do real industrial manufacturing, you need a 90% plus OEE. You don't need 20 to 30% casting yield. You don't need a printer from Japan or Germany or elsewhere that's printing with a 20% uptime and a slow rate and a high cost. You need to have that kind of performance, which is what we built in-house. Then what that allows you to do is that printer, anything that gets generated on this system, any of our printers located anywhere can then manufacture that structure. But you don't have a fully digital system unless you also have a way to assemble it that looks like the design agnostic nature of 3D printing. We've created a vision-based assembly system where, unlike a normal factory which has fixturing for a single product, the actual attachment features are built into the structure itself. So the same assembly machine, which is built in-house and can be deployed anywhere, can assemble anything generated on that system. That means this full system is design agnostic. It has a speed far greater than any analog system, and it has complete scalability. This year we'll be building a printer a week. As I said, like for something like ERAM, one printer could print about 400 structures annually for that, and immediately move to any of the other 450 different products we currently build. Out of the same factory with the same farm of printers and assemblers, we're building 450 different products. Each printer, each assembler, and we just hosted the Secretary of War about a week ago, saw firsthand this is real. This is not taking the typewriter and digitizing it, which is what I'd say Industry 4.0 is for factories. You take the typewriter and you make it electric, and then you add 2 lines of memory. This is going to a full digital system in one step. So, what's the impact? First of all, I'd say, unlike any additive manufacturing facility in the world, we price cheaper than casting. Full up on aerospace and defense, we are pricing at a lower cost. That doesn't exist anywhere on the planet. We're doing it faster. We just did an air-launched ground effects system from whiteboard to actual flight testing in 8 weeks with a prime. Successful flight testing. It is faster. The better part is when that structure, and I can share this with the prime General Atomics because they've published these numbers. This was done about 2 years ago and is representative of what we can do with a structure. It's called Eaglet. It had 184 parts in the fuselage. We reduced that to 4 parts. When we design, we print in fuel tank, hydraulics, fuel lines, baffles, etc. That allows us to massively reduce that supply chain, massively simplify it, and when you do need to make changes from data out in the field or upgrading, you can do that in hours, and on the same machines print the new structures. So massive reduction, and obviously with our incredible China supply chain issue that we have, this has a massive impact. We were replacing a carbon fiber outer mold line for the fuselage body. Because of the reduction in parts, even though we were using aluminum, we were about 5% lighter. I'd say typically on one of these affordable mass cruise missile systems, and we showed the secretary a week ago about a dozen of them that we're doing, we're reducing the mass of that structure by about 30 to 35%. We're increasing fuel capacity by about 40%. All the time, because of the reduced number of parts, the increased space in the body, lower weight, longer range, greater fuel capacity, greater ability to adapt. In terms of the timeline for producing these, obviously massively reduced. And as the Honorable Duffy said, it's all about speed and scalability. Not only were we reducing this development time, this can go immediately on any machine into volume production. Obviously, you need the other componentry, you need the avionics, you need the payload. You know, we're doing warheads, the energetics, but you need those different components. But for what often, and I'd say many, many, many times seems like the bottleneck, which is casting of the structure and then having to go from prototype casting to LRIP to volume production, that's all gone. This is direct from first structure, which is designed for volume production, to test, any adaptation, and then full volume production at a far lower cost. Good. This is a video that kind of shows a sanitized end-to-end presentation of the divergent adaptive production system. So what you're seeing there really is, and on the printing side in particular, that is a US machine with a full US BOM that will be building a printer a week by mid-end of this year. The speed at which that is printing, when I first started this company over a decade ago, people now talk about machine learning and it's a hot thing, and you see all of these advanced manufacturing companies sprouting up talking about digital engineering. This company was founded in 2014. The previous company I had was sold to Facebook, a machine learning company. This started out with a machine learning end-to-end architecture. Everything was invented. We generated over 750 patents. The machine that we're printing with, when I first started a decade ago, the fastest metal printer was printing about 15 milliliters an hour net effective print rate for aluminums. We're printing at 700 milliliters to a liter today. That is full volume American ingenuity and production. So, as I said, we started out and are fully commercialized, full TRL-9 in production in automotive. These are the 3 companies that we've had announcements with. We have 6 companies we're working with. Almost all of the structures throughout the vehicle are generated on the system that we have manufactured, assembled, and then we ship to these companies. I would just emphasize, this is not R&D technology. This is TRL-9 technology. The only bottleneck to it is some quality or qualification process for AM. We did that first process for a foreign military sale through Eglin. The material quality and repeatability is far, far, far better than any kind of casting. We also, I'd say, on individual parts, we're doing helicopter gearbox cases and landing gear cases for a European helicopter and for a South Korean jet fighter done through Triumph Group, those have already gone into flight. Those are already being produced for those vehicles on foreign military sales. There is zero reason that we should not have a qualification requirement for AM that deploys this technology. The South Koreans shouldn't be ahead of us. The French shouldn't be ahead of us. We shouldn't be sending munitions and military systems produced here to NATO so that they can be sent onwards. We should understand what this technology is, and all I'd say is if other people are doing it in America, great. But this is American technology, controlled here, American owned, and this is something which is a decisive edge. So, how does it relate to what you all do? Every single one of those companies, Ferrari, Mercedes, Porsche, every one of them obviously has an enormous reputation and has to live and die in the commercial market. And part of that is design for repairability and maintenance. You have something poor quality, it doesn't work, you can't maintain it, that's the end of your brand. Everything we do on that machine that generates these structures includes design for repairability and maintenance. Future digital systems will massively reduce the number of parts and suppliers you will need, and it will digitize the data of the structure, and then it will allow you to have a digital inventory where distributed machines at the point of need, American machines next to or on American bases can print what you need, and you don't set up a separate casting mold and a separate assembly line. The same machine, out of whatever the inventory, is simply using that capacity. That, I respectfully posit, is what the future of American maintenance and sustainment should be. It can have, and we're now looking at and doing parts qualification on a number of existing systems. Here are two examples. C-130 bell crank. Like no bid for 3 years on a casting, right? They had a problem with it, kept cracking because whoever had engineered it hadn't engineered the load case where the aircraft is sitting on the tarmac and the wind's blowing back and forth and it's cracking. That is the timeline within which we did it. We took out over half of the mass, ran it, tested it. Our facility has full testing capability and shipped that, and then it went through airworthiness. This was for Indo-PACOM on a heat exchanger. It had also no bid. And I think they then got a bid which was kind of a 2-year delivery time. This is the timeline within which you can digitize and manufacture at a fraction of the price. That was over 200 individual parts, including over 100 different needles that were hand brazed together in that heat exchanger. We need to not rebuild and try to catch China. We need to leapfrog China by going fully digital. That is what fully digital means. Designing for best product, most efficient, most repairable, most maintainable, and more than anything else, we have to move from a capability of having our equipment, which is the best in the world, execute a mission, to what we really need to defend against, which is a prolonged conflict with a nation with an industrial base that our nation has never confronted before. This is the way that you fight a prolonged war. You digitize your parts in a distributed way on demand. You create them and you repair that vehicle, you replace those parts. Obviously, you can't do it with all the parts, but many, many, many of them. And what I would say, as the technology progresses, you should be able to replace almost all parts in future systems. So, what is our mission as this company that provides factory as a service? As I said, one factory, any product. As the secretary saw, a week or so ago, we're producing 450 different products out of the same factory, out of the same printers, out of the same assemblers, back to back to back. That is the future digital world. Elon Musk recently said, factories are furnaces for capital. It's true, analog factories are furnaces for capital. Capitalism doesn't want to fund them, by the way. You know why? You have an individual product. You don't know the volume. You don't know how long you're going to have that volume. Yet up front, for the highest capacity, you have to design and build, say, a casting mold. For a factory, for that single product, to assemble something, you have to have a factory with all that capital expense be set up and fixtured for that single product. And you know what? The Cybertruck might not sell 900,000 a year. It might sell 19,000 a year. And that turns into a furnace. And if you're Elon Musk, you don't attract capital for that business. This is the game changer. This is American technology that can be financed in America that provides an asymmetric edge for the American warfighter vis-a-vis the Chinese and other opponents. So, one factory, any product, from small components for repair to, we did a 10-meter long fuselage for a CCA, all out of the same machines, all that can be done at real volume. Volumes for auto industry way beyond any volume you would look at. So, vision for tomorrow is to deploy that factory system, deploy, in the end, over time, depot arsenals across the US and Indo-PACOM, and start to create a set of processes around what fully digital engineering and manufacturing means for America. We've seen over the last couple of decades, defense, which had one time been the innovative driver, defense and space for the rest of the commercial world, fall behind the commercial world, particularly on AI. In my view, respectfully, defense can once again play that major role of driving innovation, driving a renewal of America, driving the arsenal of freedom, driving President Trump's American manufacturing renaissance. And we don't do it by looking to the past. We don't do it by trying to scale industrial capacity that is 20 years old. We do it with a technology leapfrog. And with that, I'm going to take questions. Anybody have any questions?
I got one.
Sure.
Hi, I'm Cole Sirks. I am with the F-16 program office. To use an analogy, I'm giving you another role. You're the quarterback in this analogy. I like your ability to send the ball downfield, talking offensive line-wise. Is your software development environment, your network infrastructure, DevOps infrastructure, is all that also designed and patented in-house, or do you have a software supply chain and bill of materials?
We build everything in-house. In order to do this, no software exists for generating a fully valid structure for a fully digital engineering and manufacturing system. All of that started from scratch, started from a blank sheet of paper. I would just say all of the point solutions that you're thinking about, those are all focused on what's an existing factory, how do we plug it into the existing components of a factory, how do we make those better and more efficient? This is forget digitizing the typewriter. There is a fully digital engineering and manufacturing architecture. Build the full software hardware stack for that. That's why we did that. This is a bit like the SR-71 of factories, right? Kelly Johnson said, what the hell, we had to invent everything? This was invent everything.
Awesome, thank you.
Hi there, sir. Kalden Opnavin for 16 years Naval Shipyards, and I'm really curious, your call at the end there was divergent factories as the future for the arsenal of freedom. What does it look like for our industrial base and our public depots to get that technology to rapidly accelerate our maintenance and our supply constraints?
Well, what I would say is, the leadership is very aware of the technology. We're now going through selected parts for sustainment and digitizing those parts. On the naval side, obviously doing some very large, piece of sheet steel is not what this is for. This is for doing complex structures for unmanned air, land, sea, and space vehicles. It can, for propulsion systems, weapon systems within that hull, not the hull itself, but within that hull, it can play, an enormous role and provide an enormous advantage. But if I was, in a decision maker's shoes, I would look at this and say, yes, it's clear, you do your diligence. It's very easy to see what OEE is. It's very easy to see what rate is. It's very easy to see what the material tested capabilities are, because these are all materials that have been developed and are, deployed in industry right now. What does a future arsenal depot look like? And where do we strategically place it? I would go back and just say we all need to remember there's a rights law to things, meaning when you have a new industrial technology that's being applied to rate volume production, you're going through a learning cycle where you're kind of doubling production, learning, doing the next version, doubling production. You would look and strategically select arsenal depot areas, select the right best fit, maintenance and repair parts. You would select the right munitions and missile systems, and then you would start to go through that learning process with a feedback loop that says, okay, this is what it's teaching us about what in the future fully digital engineering and manufacturing will mean for repair, for weapons development, for deployment of factories, et cetera. Does that answer your question?
Yes,
Sir, I think you've also solved another problem by doing away with molds. But there is no mold making capability in America, but it looks like you could actually fill that hole for those parts that are not made of metal but are, for instance, injected. That, I don't know if you've considered that, but there's no mold makers in America. You have to go to China if you want a mold built. But it looks like you could actually build the molds for those parts.
I'd say for metal casting molds, we do away with them. If you're talking about plastic injection molding molds, yes, we could do that. The question would really be kind of what are the economics and volume of it, and what's the priority? Because, once again, when we look at our supply chain, which is a full US supply chain for this system, we're looking and going, as we scale up at this level, we're gonna have this capacity, not because we couldn't generate more capacity, but you really need to do things in a disciplined way. Like even Amazon Web Services, where you have servers as the unit of capacity for processing and storage, they didn't, just, go all out, building server facilities. They scaled against demand. What I would say is if that was a priority for the Defense Department, it would be our priority. Yeah, I mean, it's a little surreal for me to be here. As I woke up this morning, I kind of remembered entering the gates of Parris Island, Marine Corps Depot, and being a recruit there, and now I'm standing in front, addressing very senior people. It's a little bit surreal, but our company and probably everything I've done in my life going forward from that was honor, courage, commitment that you learn there. So surely if that was a priority for our defense, that would become our priority.
I have a question. Could you, sir, over here, on the other side, could you speak to policies that are currently in place with regard to like part qualification and stuff that were aligned with our existing manufacturing structure and part acquisition policies that might need to be adapted in order to take advantage of this technology?
I would say that's the single greatest unlock. Like there was an unlock that was done for foreign military sales, for kind of airworthiness qualification. ERAM is air launched, so obviously it's had to go through that process of airworthiness. But the unlock is at the, respectfully, and obviously I say this, in the kind of most humble way, but trying to share my knowledge to the leadership. They're have many priorities, tremendous responsibility. But if I was there and I was looking at it, I'd say, of course you want to have a common recipe across the services for this type of additive manufacturing qualification. What I would say is they would have to start out understanding the rate that things are being printed, the cost, and the material quality is totally different than anything they've ever seen in their center of excellence. Like this is for example, one of the centers of excellence, you'll see, 4-laser printer from, one of the foreign manufacturers, and, they're printing at maybe 500 kilograms at the cutting edge of a material. That printer is printing 14,000 to 18,000 with, 90% plus OEE, right? They would have to look and go, assuming that these are the metrics, what do we want to do about qualification? Like this is an actual capability, and once again, I just say these capabilities can very rapidly be diligenced. Their speed, their uptime, they're things that can be observed that Ferrari, Mercedes, Lockheed, RTX, others have observed and understand.
Thanks.
Good morning, sir. Makia Porter, DLA, Product Assurance. So I love the presentation, it's right up my alley. I do have a question about qualification, same as the gentleman. At DLA, we kind of struggle with getting our engineering change proposals approved in a timely manner. So when it comes to qualification, what do you recommend? Should we do approach by commodity, material, or just keep it at the individual items? Over.
In the end, I think what you'll be doing is something that's like process qualification. You'll understand, we do in situ monitoring of every 100-micron layer of what gets built. Like we literally have zero scrap as opposed to something like casting. I think over time, at the start, you're going to obviously do individual part qualification, but I think the future digital system of, our defense industrial base is going to be one where you're going to have advanced manufacturing process qualified.
Thank you.
Okay. Am I all set? Well, thanks. Was that good for you?
Yeah, no, that was great. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate
it. That was great, and I hope you all found that thought-provoking and challenging. One thing I would say, I know there's a lot of questions about qualification and certification, and what I would offer, at least from my perspective, it is arguably less policy obstacles as much as it is institutional resistance at echelon to think about things differently and to be more aggressive in pursuing the necessary engineering certifications to more rapidly assimilate new parts into the ecosystem. And so I would say I challenge all of you to take that back, because it's less things that we can do at the departmental level and arguably more things that you can do at your level to accelerate qualification and certification of parts to overcome that sort of institutional resistance. As Kevin said, this is not a new thing. It's been around for a while. So coming up shortly, we'll begin our initial panel discussion. But I want to quickly mention the procedures for submitting questions during the panels. You can use the website. We'll have there we go. They got a website, and there's also cards available. You've seen the cards. You can pass them down the center, and members of our staff will pick them up. And so let's take a break and be back in here at 10:30. Thank you all very much.